Good morning. West Highland Way Day 1. I am excited to be here. These plans to get this trip together have been going on for years. Really starting just that abstract thought, yeah, I could do the West Highland Way someday, to thinking a bit more specifically about it, and then finally, probably over the last year and a half, 2 years, trying to plan the time I would need for it, updating whatever equipment I needed, getting all the topo maps and all that, but finally here. This obviously is not the start of the West Highland Way. I apologize for that. It was quite busy in Milngavie Center. It is a residential town. People were going to work. Kids were going to schools about 8:30 in the morning. It was also windy. There was some construction work going on, so I kind of rushed through that. So again, I apologize for that. I'm going to do the intro now, and probably about 3 miles along the way. I'm beyond Mugdock at this point. Now, probably put this first. It'll be out of sequence, but I think that'll be okay. First things first, though. Huge thanks to Morag and Lockie McNeil at Best Foot Forward, the bed and breakfast. The hospitality is appreciated, but they were just ready with answers, information for any issues or questions I had, and certainly anybody who's going to do this walk had. Things from arranging for baggage transfer to even figuring out a good time to have breakfast, based on how far you're going, what your final destination today, whether it's Drymen or for like me, I'm actually going to Conic Hill beyond Drymen, and about my average pace that I keep. Very helpful, certainly. So Morag and Lucky, thank you for your hospitality. If I come back here, I'll certainly be staying there again. Milngavie itself, people were very friendly. Everybody walking by, hiya, have a good walk, good morning. I don't know if I call it a tourist town, but it's probably just a really charming place to live. Certainly one odd thing, at least for me, people were bundled up this morning. Now it was windy in Milngavie Center, but they had knit hats, down coats, down mittens. You're Scottish. You're hardier folk than that. But anyways, along the ways now, Conic Hill is the destination today. I plan to make a few stops at a few sites along the way. We'll see what I find and what I do have time for. And I'm going to get going. Okay, this is where West Highland Way starts, in the car park. What a disappointment. I imagine it'll get better. Okay, here we go. Start of the West Highland Way. I didn't want to do an intro in the middle of town. It was just too loud and too much wind. Wouldn't be able to hear anything. I'm just going to get right into it. But before that, I just want to say huge thanks to Morag and Lockie McNeil, Best Foot Forward, for the hospitality, and really they're just a source of great information, whether you have issues you're facing or questions, baggage transfer services, what time you should have breakfast based on your final destination and pace you keep. It was just extremely helpful, and it makes the start of this so much easier. Let's get going. And this is the waymark for West Highland Way. This is one of the, probably the first tree plantation to be coming across. I think there's going to be a lot more along the way. These are probably these Sitka spruce. They must be somewhat young. The trunks are not all that thick, and they're not terribly high. I wasn't aware of this memorial until I walked by. It's just off the side of the West Highland Way. You probably cannot make out the words, but essentially what it's saying is there's a fire that was kept burning there during the Depression of the 1930s. I'm guessing before the war years and up into the war years. It said young people who lost jobs in Glasgow, working shipyards of the River Clyde, kind of wandered up into the Highlands, well, according to here, looking for adventure and I'm paraphrasing, and the freedom of the open country. There's probably more to the story than that. I imagine there was some look for work. But the implication was that what they were doing, exploring and enjoying this countryside, led to preserving it, keeping it open for all, and I imagine possibly ultimate establishment of the West Highland Way. I think the stretch here is a good example of the lowlands. It's not dramatic. It's a bit monotonous too, but pleasant, I suppose. Nice view of some hills in the distance. I think we'll be seeing Conic Hill soon. But yeah, this is a lot of what it's been. And flat, straight through some, well, there's a variety of trees, but there's been a couple of tree plantations along the way, some grasses, boggy areas, a couple small rocks. Hello cows. First cows I've seen. There's going to be quite a few more on this trip, I'm certain. You know, it's surprising I haven't seen any sheep yet. He's looking at me like I'm crazy, talking to myself. One other point to make, aside from me being crazy, when you pass through gates on these trails, if the gate is closed when you approach it as you go through, close it behind you. If it's open as you approach, leave it open after you go through. Just leave the gates in the state that they were in as you approached. Watch out for the wolf. There are the Conic standing stones. This is probably about as close as I can get. This is all tussocky and boggy. I'm not going to be able to walk through that. And I didn't see a trail up to there. Maybe there's one from the other side, but I don't have time to walk around. It'd be a long walk. That one you can see is a little suspect. That odd placement means I don't think this will pass the McIntyre test. This Conic. Well, we're approaching the Highlands, but we're still in the Midland Valley. Just all the action of the Highlands and the lowlands coming together millions of years ago forced all this to happen. I know it's not a very detailed explanation of it. I had a roommate who was a geologist back in grad school, but I'm terrible about keeping in touch with people. A good friend, but he'd also be a great source of information for something like this. Okay, I did find a way up here. Persistence. Oh, I'm glad I did. This is one of the sites I'd really wanted to see on this first day. I know my shadow's going to be in the frame a little bit. Sorry about that. I'm going to walk around here. The R-rated standing stone doesn't look so bad from this angle. I'll be back hit by the sun. And there we go, a somewhat shaky walk around the Dungoyak standing stones. There's Dungoyak. Glengoyne Distillery, common stop for walkers on the West Highland Way, with a nice tour, a malt tasting at the end, but I'm not stopping. Too many other things I want to see, too many other things I want to show you. The things I do for you people. I couldn't resist how to get a little footage of these cuties. The signs here describe them as mini Shetland ponies. I don't really know the difference between mini Shetland ponies versus regular Shetland ponies. They're all small. Alright, time for my first real stop of the day. It's, let's see, it's about 12:30, been going about 4 hours, making very good time. I'm really not too far from Drymen. There's remains of a Roman fort nearby. If it's easy to see, I'll take some photos. What I've read though, you can really only pick it up from like aerial photos. There's really not much there at all. But I'll take a look for it if I see it. Time for a snack though. Shortbread. I know, I'm such a tourist, huh? This is what I eat when I'm out hiking in the Cascades in the Pacific Northwest anyways. But yeah, it is fitting to have these here in Scotland. As always, I got my beef jerky to get a little extra protein there. I don't know how much you can see here, but just a beautiful Scottish countryside setting. I'm just going to chill here for 15-20 minutes. I'm going to be on my way again. I'm not certain, but that might be the remains of the old Roman fort. I'm guessing. Something was dug there at some time. You know, I had read you really can't see much from the road, so I didn't do any reading on the Roman fort. I don't know anything about it. If this is it, maybe I'll look up some information. I'll write it on, add it later to the footage. And also, if it is Roman fort, I'd imagine it's got to be one of the most northern Roman forts they had. They couldn't have gone much further than this. Okay, so those of you who might be staying Drymen on your first night, West Highland Way does not go through Drymen. The village is situated a little bit to the west. You would actually turn left here. I'm not staying in Drymen, so I'm going forward. I'm just going to bypass this. Alright, so there's several miles south of Drymen, following the West Highland Way up towards Drymen, that were on the road, and it totally blew. I didn't like it at all. I had to walk on the tarmac. I use that term tarmac knowingly because it was named after a Scot, McAdam, John McAdam, I believe it was. I don't remember the story behind that, why it's named after him. I'm sure he had something to do with it. Macadamia nuts are also named after him, and I also don't remember the story behind that. But if you're at Kailua Airport on the Big Island and you're eating macadamia nuts on the tarmac, both named after the same guy. But it wasn't pleasant. The tarmac doesn't feel as good as walking on the dirt paths. The hedgerows, the brambles were right at the side of the road. There was no sidewalks. Couldn't see anything because they're up over my head. But that part's over. I've been back in the woods. Well, it's a forest plantation, the Queen Elizabeth Forest Park and the Drymen Forest. So it's rejuvenating. It's refreshing. So I feel better about that. And also, I've over the past year, I've come to think of this walk as my kidnapped Rob Roy walk. Kidnapped is a stretch. We're only going to cross paths with that route further north. I'll be in a couple of days. But this is Rob Roy area where, if you can see Conic Hill over my shoulder, we're at the south end of Loch Lomond. This is that territory. And the book itself, Volume 1, the first half, it's nearly unbearable. I got through it, so barely bearable. But it's a long, drawn-out, tortured soap opera. Volume 2, much more action, much more dramatic, and there's some dark moments in there. And the setting is different. That actually takes place, the majority of it, in the Highlands. I'm sure the difference in the two volumes was done on purpose to show the contrast between, Volume 1 really focused on the Osbaldistone family, their estate, and the gradual self-destruction and waste the family was going through, self-inflicted, as compared to what was happening to the clans here, the forced destruction of their lifestyle. Now that's the the fictional Rob Roy, but there's also the historical Rob Roy, and I'm sure they vary widely in a lot of ways. Stories of him being cattle rustler. There's a lot of evidence for that, but there's also a lot of evidence that his livelihood was taken away from him, and he needed to provide for his family. What is known, to use, the common, modern version of his name, Rob Roy McGregor. The name McGregor was outlawed for a number of years, as was the use of the tartan for any of the clans. Various parts of the Highland dress. I believe the bagpipes were outlawed for a while. Some of you might agree with that, but it was done as an attempt to just destroy the clan culture. And those things have gone on in the past. Unfortunately, those things are going on today, where a people is being forced out, culture being destroyed intentionally. I don't want to moralize too much. But I live in Seattle. It's a rapidly growing city. Some people are being displaced, unfortunately, because rents are becoming higher as the average income has gone up so drastically over the last few years. And it's not an easy process. There's always going to be change. Cultures are always going to meet. But there just needs to be more discourse, thoughtful policy, compromise around that to help deal with the change. It's going to be bumpy. But this just forced destruction of people and cultures just shouldn't be happening. That's my moralizing for the moment. Now, getting towards the end of my hike for the day, there's another 3.5 hours of sunlight. If you can see Conic Hill just above me, above the reeds here, I have time where I could go over that. But as I go down the west side, I'll be entering the restricted zone where there's no camping. There's just been too much misused by too many people over the years. And that goes from the southern border of Loch Lomond 9 miles up to about Ptarmigan Lodge. So I'll be camping on this side. There's one more thing I wanted to try to find and show you, and then after that I got to think about finding a campsite for the night. one of the things I'd want to do each day is to just go through a different set of gear. I didn't want to do it all at once. Honestly, I think it'd just be too boring. Today I want to do just a whole sleep system. Before I do that though, I want to just give you a quick look around here. Now this is my first camping spot. I'm just, let's see, I guess it would be the southeast corner of Conic Hill. You can probably hear a running brook down there. There's actually a campsite close to the water. I don't like to camp right on the water. Look at that. You know, I'm making this interesting. Ferns, reeds, whatever right there. Then we go further out. Back in the woodlands, we're starting to see the hills, that's actually part of the line of the Highland boundary fault. Got some of these birch trees here. How could you not want to wild camp the West Highland Way after seeing this? I mean, this is just a perfect setting. I see a glimpse of my duo-mid there. If not wild camp, at least walking the West Highland Way. It's beautiful. Alright, my sleeping system. I've shown the duo-mid in other videos. It's the Cuban fiber version. You know, if it rains, which it often does in Scotland, in the morning, this will be exactly the same shape, so long as I staked it out properly. The Cuban fiber won't start to sag just because it got wet. It holds up to the wind very, very well. It just kind of shakes it up due to the shape of it. That back corner is a little concave. I'm going to tighten that up in a moment. So yeah, I've always been happy with Cuban fiber. The next few days at least though, not supposed to rain. So that won't even be an issue. But still, I've camped out in the rain and it's been fantastic. Inside, I've got the internet going with the Cuban fiber tub base. I don't think I need the internet for midges. They're probably gone now. It's too late in the year for them. But you know what? I don't want to wake up in the morning with slugs walking all over my face. So I have it up for that reason. Alright, the rest of my sleep system. This is what I call my never see the light of day bag, because theoretically, and really except for right now, in practice, the items in here really never see the light of day. These come out of the bottom of the pack after the duo-mid is up. Anytime other than right now, I'm in the duo-mid when I open this bag. So what do we have? First, the Exped Hyperlight sleeping pad. I've been very happy with it. It is noisy though. If you're camping nearby someone who's a light sleeper and you're one like me who tends to move around a little bit during the night, it's going to make noise. But whatever, I sleep through it, so it's fine for me. And toss this in there. Next, a pair of merino wool socks. These come out of the bag in the duo-mid. They stay in there. These don't go on my feet until I've cleaned them off. I also put some balm on my feet too. So these should stay dry the entire trip. You're gonna have wet feet during the day. It didn't rain today, but enough bogginess and some burns that I walked over. My feet are wet. I'm gonna sleep with dry feet though because of this. And last item in here. This is the Sierra Designs down quilt. I believe it's 800 fill. I think they call it a 2.5 season quilt. I sleep warm. I haven't needed more than this in weather getting down to near freezing. I do have a down jacket, a fleece jacket that I might put on if needed. I have them, but I do sleep warm. I don't like being wrapped up because I do get too hot. So I like it being open. I can move around. It also has these little hand pockets, so when you're lying in, you kind of have your arms wrapped up to your neck. This quilt just comes with it. It doesn't fall off. So another thing, it's down, 800 down, so it's not cheap. I haven't regretted any of it. It's been well worth it, the cost of this. And that really is just, and briefly, is my sleeping system. All right, I warned you. Hiking these number of miles can get monotonous, and my mind does tend to wander. So here's a couple of things where my train of thought led me to. Neither are all that interesting. You can turn things off, turn it off right now if you want to. First though, looking at some distance markers, not so much for the West Highland Way itself, but how far to Drymen or Mugdock, various villages, and you would see 4 miles, 3.5 miles, 3 miles, 2.5 miles. I don't know, it just got me thinking, there was a time when I was a kid, I would count half years. I'm 3.5, I'm 4.5. I think when you're that age, all the older people, well, the older ladies at least, they're always coming up to the kids saying, oh, you're getting so big, or come here, let me see how big you're getting. So as a kid, it's important to be big. And I remember someone, as we are way back when, last century, are you 4 years old? I said, I'm not 4, I'm 4.5. But when did we stop counting? The half years. Now my best guess is I probably did it up to 5.5, but not 6. Meaning never told me I was 6.5, and that would because, well, then I would have been in first grade, and I think that would have meant an automatic beating on the playground if I said I was 6.5. So I think that stopped right there. The other thing I was thinking of, well, some of the nice scenes, some of the vistas I saw, I was trying to think of some superlatives, just thinking about adjectives. So I was wondering, what is like the best and worst adjectives that people could earn. Now, as worst, I'm not talking about slurs. That's just people being bad, hateful people being bad using them. But adjectives that would be earned. Now, I had a hard time with both. So good adjectives, I was thinking brave, heroic. But then I thought, that's kind of like that old curse disguised as a blessing. May you live in an interesting period of history. To be heroic or brave, you have to earn it. You have to go through stuff. Too much work. I don't know, just nice, happy. That's the best I can think of for the best adjective. Worst adjective? I was thinking more along the lines of like gullible. Someone like who's a stooge or duped. Be the adjective for duped, dupish, dupable. So in the sense of, whatever political leanings you have, we'll think of some authority figure on the opposite party and said, well, this person thinks he's doing all these things, but there's others who are pulling the strings. He's just a stooge. He's duped. That's not what I would want to have on me. I'm sure there's worse than that. Nothing very comments on my videos, but throw in the comments if you got some thoughts on that one. But I warned you. That's it though. Worst segment of the day, done. So let's wrap up the first day. On a scale of 1 to 5, I would give it an A++++ to infinity. It was fantastic. At the beginning of the day at the B&B, a fantastic B&B, I think I mentioned earlier, best foot forward. But I was dealing with my other luggage for the rest of the trip. I was so happy to leave that behind. I've got a baggage service that's moving that up to Fort William for me. I was sick of moving that around. That's not what I like. The pack, the full pack and the kit, that's what I do anyways. I carry that around on all my hikes. Once I had the luggage done, just carrying that, I was so much happier. A couple things I was apprehensive about coming in, specific to today, is I wasn't certain I was going to be able to spot the standing stones near Dungoyant. And then 2, if I could see them, would I be able to get to them? And of course the answer to both was yes. They're not the biggest standing stones. There aren't that many of them. They're not even standing anymore. But it just got in my head, and I really wanted to see them. I'm so happy I did. I was smiling ever since then. The one thing I mentioned I was going to try to find, I did not. That was St. Maha as well. That's an old well. It's just a few stones in the ground. The well, the spring that comes up is shallow. It's not that big a deal. It was on the OS map, and I thought I might try to find it. It's a ways off the trail. It's probably about a half mile back. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to find it. Once I realized I'd walked by where it would be, I didn't bother backtracking. Whatever, nothing lost with not seeing that one. But I showed you the campsite. I'm not sure I captured just the beauty of it. I can see the sun. And let me look at my watch. I mean, it's not even 5 o'clock yet. I probably got another couple hours of sunlight. It may go behind Conic Hill. But that's going to be it for today. This campsite is in the Midland Valley, but we're about a quarter mile from the Highland boundary fault. I can see it from here. That is the line that forms the barrier between the lowlands and the highlands. Within probably the first 10-15 minutes of walking tomorrow morning, I'm going to be in the highlands. And assuming there's enough light and the weather is okay, and the forecast is that it should be okay. I don't know about the wind though, I suppose. I'm going to stop there and want to get a shot of a few things that hopefully will be quite striking. But day one, that's it. It's done. Thanks for watching.